The implications of Israel's ground invasion into Lebanon. Israel, of course, is calling this a limited operation, but can it be contained as a limited operation? And what are the fears that this could spread into a wider regional war? CNN's chief national security analyst and anchor Jim Sciutto is now joining us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Jim, for speaking with us. So Israel is calling this a limited operation. Their objective is to try and secure the border between Israel and Lebanon in a way that the rocket attacks from Hezbollah stop. But can they do it in a limited operation?
I mean, that's the thing. Limited is in the eye of the beholder, I think you can say, because this is certainly less limited than it was prior in that they are now planning a significant, it seems, ground presence there. Listening to the IDF spokesperson speaking just in the last hour, he took pains, it seemed, to say, listen, we've done raids like this before. We go across, we go after firing positions, etc., and then we leave. He also said they do not plan a long-term occupation of southern Lebanon. That said, their stated goal remains to push Hezbollah back many miles from the border with Israel. The Litani River is often talked as the frontier. That's close to 20 miles back, and that was the frontier as required by the UN Security Council Resolution 1701. To do that, if that remains the goal, that requires pushing far further into southern Lebanon, a number of miles, of course, but also somehow clearing all those tunnels, all those firing positions, all those homes, etc., where the IDF says that Hezbollah forces have stored weapons and been firing inside into northern Israel. So I think Israeli officials being quite careful with their language right now, but when you listen to what the goal of this operation is, that speaks to a more significant operation.
But Jim, even if they were successful in that objective, which is to push Hezbollah back, whether it's 5, 10, 20 miles up north, Hezbollah still has the capability to fire long-range missiles into northern Israel, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does, and that's been one of the issues here, right, is that Hezbollah has built up an enormous arsenal with the aid of Iran of many tens of thousands of missiles, some of them with quite long ranges. And to be clear, Israel via airstrikes says it's been targeting some of those missile storage sites right up to in and around Beirut. Listen, they don't imagine, it seems, that they can reoccupy Lebanon going back to what we saw in the 80s and 90s here. So they want to create some sort of cushion that makes it safer, at least, for those living in northern Israel so that they could return to their homes. But there are, of course, certain missiles with certain ranges that moving 20 miles in would not solve the problem. And, of course, you have the track record here. Israeli forces went into Lebanon in 2006 for a month. And then withdrew, and Hezbollah came back. Israeli forces were in Lebanon from 1982 to 2000, and then they left, and Hezbollah grew. So the track record in terms of not just pushing Hezbollah back, but keeping them back, has not been great. And of course, the question is, what are the lessons that have been learned? Can they apply those lessons?
Is it also possible that Israel, by doing what it's doing, the ground invasion, and of course, last weekend, the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, is also trying to draw Iran into this conflict? And what are the chances that Iran might bite that bait? We're not seeing any evidence to that effect, at least in the last few days. But how long can Iran hold out despite all of these moves from Israel?
Yeah. Listen, it's an open question. Iran, of course, launched a major attack on Israel in April, sending dozens of missiles and drones, though the vast majority of them were shot down not just by Israeli forces, but U.S. forces as well as other partners in the region. But since then, even with the killing of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran and the killing now of Nasrallah, it seems Iran is keeping its powder dry, as it were, to some frustration, it seems, from its allies Hamas and Hezbollah, making an assessment perhaps of what its own capabilities are. Can it strike Israel reliably and credibly? And what would the cost be? Would that then tempt an Israeli strike directly on Iran, particularly its nuclear facilities? Each player in this conflict right now is making judgments about what can be gained and what it might lose. And it seems, at least for the moment, Iran is calculating they might have more to lose by getting involved than by striking back.
And I want to get your thoughts on the U.S. administration, President Biden's White House. Every time they have said something vis-a-vis their expectation from Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu and his government have gone and done quite the opposite. Whether it was a ceasefire, whether it was attacking Lebanon, whether it is the ground invasion, it seems like, at least in public statements, the two don't seem to be on the same page.
And in private statements, frankly. I mean, the U.S. administration has made two major ceasefire efforts, one in Gaza and one in Lebanon prior to the strike killing Nasrallah on Friday. And in both instances, even from, while U.S. officials will say Hamas in one case, Hezbollah and other parties in the other case had certainly had a role to play, but they expressed their frustration as well that the Israeli leader was not sufficiently committed to those efforts. So the fact of the matter is that at this point, it seems that the Israeli Prime Minister calculates he can do what he wants to some degree, despite disagreement with U.S. leaders.
And very quickly, what does this mean for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel? Of course, he's been under fire, whether it's on the rescue of the remaining hostages, whether it's on the killing of innocent civilians in Gaza, and of course now the invasion into Lebanon, the killing of Hassan Nasrallah. Has all of this sort of politically bought him some more time, strengthened his position domestically in Israel? I believe he's also inducted somebody who used to be a one-time political rival, is now part of his government.
Right. Well, when I was here in the wake of October 7th, there was a lot of talk in Israel as to how long Netanyahu could last. That talk is gone for now. It seems like he has, and some of this is reflected in the public polling, enough support now to continue. Not clear for how long, but many Israelis view, for instance, these most recent strikes against Hezbollah as successful, and there are political benefits, it seems, from that for the Israeli Prime Minister.
All right, Jim Sciutto, live for us tonight in Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us with your thoughts and perspective. I also want to get the view from the other side. What's the view from the Arab world? What's the view from Lebanon? How are they viewing these proceedings? Because it's been pretty dramatic. Friday, you had the announcement from Israel about the killing of Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah. And then on Monday, leading up to Tuesday, you had news of the ground invasion by Israel. So Hussein Ibish is from the Arab Gulf States Institute. He's joining us live from Washington. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us. The IDF, before going into Lebanon, into southern Lebanon, has said that this is going to be a limited operation. They will try and destroy the Hezbollah capabilities in the border villages from where they've been launching these rocket and missile attacks into northern Israel, which of course has forced the resettlement of the northern populations, about 60,000 Israeli citizens. Do you think this objective can be achieved in the limited operation that the IDF has set out to do?
Well, no, because Hezbollah fires rockets from all over the place in Lebanon. They have the ability to hit any part of Israel whenever they want to from any part of Lebanon. It's really interesting, though, that Hezbollah has not used most of its arsenal, especially its really sophisticated arsenal of medium and long-range missiles that have precision guidance, because Iran has not wanted them to use it. And I think that Israel, really they can probably be successful in fighting anyone they encounter on the ground. But what are they going to do? Push the border 10 kilometers north? That doesn't change anything much. They could declare it a big success for northern Israel's security, but it won't make northern Israel any more secure. And I think Hezbollah would relish a protracted guerrilla war against the Israelis. So far, the fight between Israel and Hezbollah has been exactly the war that Israel wanted to fight and has been preparing to fight since 2006, since the last Hezbollah-Israeli war. But if they engage in a protracted occupation of even a small part of southern Lebanon, they will be engaging in the war that Hezbollah wants to fight. And it will be the opportunity for Hezbollah to rebuild and reconstitute itself. In other words, Israel would be preparing to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, if you follow.
No, so if you're saying that the Israeli objective, which is to push Hezbollah back 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers or however further north they want them to be pushed, let's presume that that's the objective. But you're saying that does not matter because Hezbollah still has the capability to hit Israel from even 100 kilometers away from the northern border. The question then is, why aren't they using those long-range missiles, particularly after what, if you were a Hezbollah operative or a Hezbollah cadre, you would imagine that this is the most catastrophic thing that can happen to you as an organization, which is the killing of your leader for the last 30 years, which is Hassan Nasrallah. So why haven't they used these long-range missiles?
Yeah, so this is an outstanding question, and it gets to the heart of what's going on and what's not going on in this war. Hezbollah's real missile arsenal has not been used at all during this campaign. And if it were an arsenal that was mainly intended to defend Hezbollah or Lebanon or anything like that, it would certainly have been. But that's not what it's for. It is for defending Iran. Hezbollah is not like Hamas or even the Houthis in Yemen, a group with independence, a group that emerged independently of Iran and now is in an alliance or a marriage of convenience or something with the Iranians. Hezbollah was created in concert with Iran. It is, to a very large extent, a creature of Iran and of Iranian intelligence. And really, a lot of its most sophisticated capabilities, especially its missile arsenal, is not intended for any purpose other than, at the moment, its purpose anyway, is in this current era in the Middle East, it is intended to defend Iran and Iran's nuclear facilities from any Israeli or American attack. It is a crucial deterrent in Iran's forward defenses. It is not to be wasted in a war to protect Gaza or Hamas, and not even to protect Lebanon and Hezbollah. It is really only going to be used, in my estimation, if Iran is attacked or feels that it is about to be attacked. Now, there is the possibility that the arsenal gets so degraded and it passes a certain percentage of point of destruction, say 50% or something like that, of destruction, that Iran and Hezbollah conclude that it's a use it or lose it situation, that if they're ever going to use these things, now is the time, so why not?